Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. We are here again to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. I absolutely love what I do, helping attorneys grow their law practices, but I have a special place in my heart for this podcast and the people that I get to meet and the people I get to interview. And Saja, it has been a long time coming. Would you agree?
Yes.
I've been asking you, and we kind of set to have you on, and then we had a little pause, and you had to go and build some significant business. You had a great year, it sounds like, in 2024, and now we're back, and I've got you, and you're trapped for 30 minutes with me, and you can't escape. But I'm so excited that you're here. We're going to have some fun. If you're okay having some fun and some laughs along the way?
Absolutely. And you knew the topic was introversion, so inevitably there will be some delay getting on the podcast.
That's okay. That's okay. Look, we're going to be there. I mean, what do you think, just out of curiosity, if you had to put a ballpark on like how many attorneys out of 100 are introverts, where would you say it sort of falls?
It's probably 50-50.
50-50. I would agree with that. And I actually enjoy working with introverts. I know that sounds odd, but I feel like they have the greatest opportunity to follow a system. I think extroverts hate systems and they're like feathers on the wind, like me. And then there's people that really appreciate a good system. And when they get a system, it's like, oh, everything comes together. So I kind of enjoy watching that transformation in what I do. But let's jump in right away with our quote of the show. And this is Matthew Cahill. When you shine a light on others, it reflects on you. Welcome to the show. And please share why that is your quote of the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. It's really an honor. I've been a big fan of your books and your podcast and your work, and it's such an honor to be on your show. So Matthew Cahill is a dear friend of mine. He's a member in the network that you and I both belong to, Provisors. And when he mentioned that quote at a meeting that I attended a few years ago that he facilitates, inclusive leadership in a virtual world, it really resonated with me because it's almost suited for introverts who like to put the attention on other people and deflect it off themselves. And that boomerangs and reflects on them. So when I give you a referral or I give you a great testimonial, and I really put effort and thought into that testimonial, whether it's verbal or in my case, in the form of a video, then my making you look good makes me look good.
Yeah.
And that's great news for introverts because we prefer to do things that way. So it enhances us networking wise.
I think we could take that even further and say, and this is something I kind of came up with, which is, if you help enough other people get what they want out of life, then you get what you want out of life. Like if we just focus on other people, and like I love to get results from my clients, and that's how I get results, right? They're seen through them. So I think that's all in line. And, networking, about being a giver, like I think it all works together. And I think what you're saying is it also really helps introverts take the spotlight off of themselves and get comfortable with putting it on someone else and then dealing with reflection, which is beautiful.
Absolutely. There's a reason why the book, The Go-Giver by Berg and Mann is so heavily cited in Provisors. There is entire Provisors meeting centered just around discussing it. Yeah. I received a copy as a group leader of it last year. And it's because what you just said is the foundation of successful networking.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we're going to get some great insights today from my friend Saja Raoof, who's the border wall destroyer at Saja Raoof Inc. And so let's just take a little trip down memory lane a little bit in your life and kind of how did you become you? Like what's your, you don't have to start when you were like 2, but, take us through like how you became this top-notch immigration attorney and how you have become this great business developer as an introvert. Like I want to kind of give the Reader's Digest to our folks.
My family and I traveled quite heavily when I was growing up. We're originally from Iraq, but we lived in the UK and in Saudi Arabia, and then eventually immigrated to the US. We kept trying to go back to Iraq, but the recent events in my lifetime made it very difficult, from war to dictatorship. So in the early 90s, when it was clear we were probably never going to go back to Iraq after the 91 Gulf War, my dad decided to apply for a newly legislated visa at the time called Alien of Extraordinary Ability, which is colloquially known as the Genius Visa. And it's for individuals who are the top of their field internationally. And he had me help him put our green card application together when I was about 13 years old. So going through that process really informed my career decision to become a business immigration lawyer.
Yeah.
And so my parents had met in medical school. I was pre-med for a long time, and then I decided to jump ship and go to law school.
You know, I had the opposite thing. My father, Larry, the late great Larry, the lawyer, he'd put me on the cross as a teenager, and I said, I never want to be a lawyer because I was just getting annihilated by my very intelligent father who had about 1,000 questions for me, including why'd you park on the lawn? But that's a different story we won't get into because I was 14. Anyway, Saja, so let's talk a little bit about you building your own practice and what were some of the challenges that you had kind of starting your own gig, being someone who's an introvert, and maybe even talk about like what your mindset was back then.
Networking was absolutely the hardest part of starting my own practice. So my clients were primarily ones who already knew me and referred me other clients. But as far as proactively reaching out to people and I would go to immigration lawyer events or bar association events, maybe talk to a few people, gather a few business cards, maybe connect to them on LinkedIn, put their cards in the door and never talk to them again or hear from them.
Yeah.
So, and I'm from Michigan. When I moved to California, I knew almost nobody. So it was very difficult for me to build my network and to get out of my shell. And it took a lot of practice and reading and forcing myself and checking in with friends, and debriefing after networking with people. And finally, I was able to break through, and it's been the best career decision.
Yeah. And I still remember, specific images or videos of you, even in the last number of years, where you're hiding out in a bathroom, where you're like, I'm just so uncomfortable being in this room with these people, and I'm dealing with it the best I can. And I just think I think there's another element of you that that really shines through, and that's your level of authenticity. Like you've decided, I am this way. Everyone kind of figuring it out anyway. I might as well lean into it.
Yes, exactly. The bathroom tip, Oprah Winfrey is actually an introvert. And in an interview, she mentioned that she hides out in the bathroom. And that's exactly what I do. And so I was really excited about embracing that and flaunting it. And that tactic is an important tip that I give when I speak on networking for introverts, which is manage your energy. So if talking to people, engaging in small talk is draining for you, then you have to make an intentional effort to step away every now and then, recharge, be alone, and then go back into the networking circle.
Yeah. I think also what I'm talking to people about too, especially the introverts I work with, is set a goal of what you want to accomplish in a 2-hour networking event in person, for example, and feel okay. Like if you can meet 3 people and one of them is like someone that could do business with you or someone that you want to meet with for coffee, like I'm not saying to get 3 and run out the door, but like know that you did it. Like know that you got 3 cards or that you have 3 people to follow up with, and like be okay leaving. Like I always felt like I had to be the last person in, the first person in, the last person out. And these days, I don't know if it's my age or just how much long I've been doing this, but I kind of want to get out early. Like I want to go for an hour, and unless I'm running it, like I'll do an hour. And I'm like, even the last Provisors event in Chicago, the holiday party, I kind of left early, and people didn't know it because I slunk out like a thief in the night. But I did it. Like I saw the people I wanted to see. I'm out.
I like the strategy of having in mind exact people to talk to. Another way that I do that, especially with Provisors at Night or holiday parties, is to go with fellow introverts. I went with Angela Duns and Jakob Robert to a Provisors event a few months ago. All 3 of us are introverts, and we decided going in, we're leaving in an hour. So we know exactly when we're going together and carpool back home. So that way it's less stressful if you know that you'll be there for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And you could also go with an extrovert, and they do all the talking while you sort of
But I want to. But here's something else, Saja, that I think is interesting. The concept of shine the light on others. We can use that here too. So my thought is like when I go to networking events, like I ask someone about what they do and they tell me they're this kind of lawyer or whatever. And I go, you probably want to meet these kinds of lawyers. And they go, yeah, that's exactly what I want to ask. You know what? Come with me. And so I don't sit there and I'm like trying to get business or sell people anything. I'm like, let me see how many people I can connect. And I basically like become up like a host of the room or something like that. I wasn't asked to do that, but I find that I'm being useful as opposed to, just kind of moving from person to person. And you can make some really great friends that way too.
Yeah, you asked me exactly that. You did exactly what you just talked about in our very first Troika back in, it must have been 2020 or 21. And it really stood out that you were so eager to help and support and not necessarily wait for an immigration referral opportunity, but to try to connect me and support my business in the meantime. And I've both incorporated that into the way I network and I mentor others, and I cite you who are newcomer supervisors on exactly that.
Well, much appreciated. And I, look, I just appreciate anyone that is going about networking in a way that's productive for others in particular, with the understanding that, yeah, if you help enough other people, it'll come back to you. You just have to, I think A, patience, and then B, I think there might have to be some intentional coaching that some people don't do, but I think is necessary because people don't understand like who I really do want to meet. And so I just have to kind of explain to them and share with them the situation or the type of person or the type of law practice or whatever to kind of, so they have a more clarity about it, and then it makes everything easier. So what kind of tips would you give for introverts that struggle with A, getting out the door, and then B, like actually performing when they're in that room? I mean, we have hide in the bathroom. I don't know. That's one tip. But that's a different tip. What are some things that you have found to be really successful in the way you do it?
Ask open-ended questions, because that, once again, is a way for you to get them to do what people like most, which is talk about themselves, talk about their career, talk about their business. So you're engaging in conversation, but it's not small talk heavy. It's you're not being forced to come up with the conversation. You are prompting the conversation and letting the other person run with it. I would also suggest being armed with one or two questions that you always insert into the conversation when there's an awkward silence, when you need to, the sort of questions that spare you the small talk. So for example, if I were to be asked about sports, I am completely closed. I can't engage in that conversation. A question that I always like to ask is, how did you get into your career? And that is an interesting, hearing about their pathway towards their chosen career is always interesting to hear about. And it also marks you as a good listener when you ask thoughtful questions. And that's important, not just so that people feel heard and connected to you, but also because if you're a good listener, then when they refer you a client, that's a good quality for an attorney to have, that they would know about you. In the group that I lead, San Francisco 14, sometimes there's complaints, as I'm sure you get in your group, that somebody dominated the conversation in a breakout room. And as hard as you try as group leader to control it, and you tell people 1 minute per person, or you assign somebody to facilitate the conversation, what it boils down to is, if you dominate the conversation, then you are signaling that you're not a good listener and that you're not really interested in hearing about others, and that affects may affect your referability or just
the relationship. It affects, I mean, you want people to like you and feel good about you, and when you make the conversation about them and focus on them, they just like you more, and they're going to want to either help you or they're going to want to like learn more about you eventually. I almost feel like you could coin open-ended questions as an introvert's secret weapon. Like
Yes.
that's how, as an introvert, you want to play that game. Like just ask the open-ended questions. I would also add preparation, and that's not always possible. But I think one thing I didn't mention about that holiday party that I did, and this is, I don't want to say sneaky, but it was kind of sneaky good, was I emailed everyone on the photo list that I wanted to see. And I'm not saying if you didn't get an email from me and you're listening, I apologize. But there were like maybe 20 people that were either clients or people I haven't seen in a while that I really wanted. And I just said, I'm looking forward to seeing you tonight. I want to make sure I, find you and we get a couple minutes to talk. And that was my hit list. So anyone new that I met, that was like icing on the cake. But ultimately, I sort of like prepared myself for that meeting, sent out the emails. And another way to think about it is if you're going to something, maybe become friends with the person who's hosting, right? Like if I'm coming to your meeting, I want to get in with you because you're going to be the one that can kind of point me around to the people that maybe make the most sense for me.
Mhm. I love how we're on the same wavelength. One of the things I tell my members when I onboard them to SF14 is when you guest at another home group for the first time, always request a troika with the group leader. So request a troika with the troika manager, the group leader, because they decide who gets approved or not for guesting, and they connect you to people in their group that are useful for you to get to know. And the troika manager honors troika requests, and that's a useful person to know. So for sure, that's very strategic networking, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's a great tip for the provisors folks listening to request troikas. I've been requesting troikas with lawyers, which I think is also good, but I hadn't thought about the host and the troika master, which is brilliant, and I'm going to start doing that. I love that. Any other things that you found introverts can do to turn their introversion into a positive, into sort of a strength?
Embrace the spotlight, and I know that sounds counterintuitive, but the author of the book that really changed my networking game and helped me finally go out and guest improvisers after 8 months of fearing it and dreading it, Devorah Zak, she wrote Networking for People Who Hate Networking. She wrote that when she was in college, she was a DJ, which is great for an introvert because the spotlight is on you, but you're not chit-chatting with people. And that's different than, for example, a bartender, where you do have to engage people. So Johnny Carson was an introvert. As I mentioned, Oprah is an introvert. When you embrace the spotlight, and within networking, that's in the form of giving talks on your subject matter expertise or giving testimonials to people who gave you a referral, get comfortable with the spotlight. And in my case, when I became a group leader, I had no idea how to run a meeting. So I reached out to a public speaking coach, Eloquy, Deborah Shames and David Booth, and trained with them regularly as not just when I became a group leader, but just last month, knowing that I will be asked to speak on immigration quite frequently for the next 4 years. So I brushed up on my public speaking skills, and you provide others value, and at the same time there's attention on you, and you don't have to chit chat with people, so it's a win on all fronts.
Yeah. And how about people who are either super enthusiastic, like maybe too much, lampshade on the head at the party, and then people who are like maybe super dominant, like really direct and close talkers and things that, how do you handle like people that are just like the opposite of you and other introverts?
They make great allies. So they encourage me when I created SF14. A lot of people on my EC are extroverts, and that's helpful when we interview a candidate to join the group. An explicit instruction that I have for my EC members is when we interview a candidate, you do the talking, and I will just quietly judge. So that sort of complementary energies. And then another thing, I am so outspoken about being an introvert, exactly to send a message to the people who are stand a little too close, or just, it's okay to embrace and it's okay to talk about. And you're sort of educating people on your preferred energy level. And then you learn with time, and in the book that I referenced, how to sort of step away from situations when it becomes too overwhelming. That's what the bathroom is for.
Right. Take a break and go kind of reset.
Exactly.
Something that I also found, like I've been doing, are you familiar with DISC assessments?
Yes.
Do you know what that is? So DISC is a behavioral assessment, everybody, that allows us to sort of understand like how people are built behaviorally. And when you meet someone for the first time, you can't say, "Hey, really great to meet you. Before we talk further, can you go for 12 minutes in this room and go take this DISC assessment so I can communicate with you better?" Nobody's really up for that. So, but I do teach DISC in a way that helps to communicate better. And I know like when I'm talking to introverts, it doesn't always work out this way, but like, especially with like prospective clients where I'll just recognize, "Hey, Steve, slow down." Another thing I might do is I might say, "Look, this is someone that really is going to need time. They're going to need steps. You're going to need to be patient. You're going to have to put proof and evidence and information in front of them. And the least pressure you can have, that's what this person's going to," and I'm never pressured anyway, but I'm just saying like, I try to think about it from their perspective, how they would want to buy or how they would want to take in someone like me and try to like bring my either not my energy level down, but like bring it down to like where I think I'm just communicating more effectively. So I think that's just something else that, like I'll give you a quick example. I would say to somebody, this is a big decision. We're going to work together. Let's take this step by step. Let's make sure that we, make sure all the pieces are in place. I want to make sure I give you enough time and information to make an important decision like this. And I think for an introvert, that's like, oh, thank God.
Yes.
Oh, thank God I'm hearing these things, because it's the opposite of what normally they'd hear or you'd hear. And it's what I feel anyway, but it also, I think, just helps to communicate in a way that's going to resonate with someone who is going to take a little more time to make a decision and needs a little bit of space and just more information.
Exactly.
Yeah. So any final thoughts before we wrap up? I want to get to our game-changing book. And any kind of final thoughts for the introverts out there that say, "Hey, I want to build a successful law practice, and I've heard a lot of great things here today, and I just need one more."
So I'm thinking of the book Quiet by Susan Cain, and she talks about how the civil rights movement needed both MLK Jr.'s extroverted energy and Rosa Parks's introverted energy. Don't allow yourself to think that successful networking or business development is something that extroverts have an advantage in. It's for introverts as well, and we can be at least as successful as anyone. And it takes practice, and it gets easier with time. That does not constitute a promise to engage in small talk with anyone, just to be clear. If I could do it, my formative years, I lived ages 6 to 17 in Saudi Arabia, where there was a strong emphasis on being unseen and unheard for females. If I could do it, anyone can.
Yeah. And I would just add, embrace the content that exists out there, whether that's the books you've mentioned, whether it's videos on YouTube on the subject, talking with other people, getting coached, mentored, figuring out like because I think systems and process are what introverts crave to get through something, right? Like a recipe for making a great meal. You need to have a good recipe, and that makes it less of a chance and less of a risk. You know what you're doing and what you need to heat things up to. So I would say just become a student of the networking game. The Attorney's Networking Handbook is on Amazon. You mentioned Quiet. And then you mentioned your game-changing book, Networking People Who Hate Networking. And that sounds like a lot of what we've been talking about, but is there some highlights you want to just share about that book that really resonated with you?
It's a very readable book that comes from the author's own experience. When I saw the title, it spoke to me. I grabbed it right away. I've gifted it to many people. She doesn't tell you to change your nature. She shows you how to network, accommodating your nature and leveraging it.
Like adapting? Is that kind of the theme? Adapt?
You are maintaining your nature as an introvert,
Okay.
and you are adding measures to work with your natural energy.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the stepping away when you need to take a breather. She talks about showing up to a Mensa conference, and she was sitting alone, and somebody came to her and said, "Is this how you network?" And her response, I don't know if she said it out loud, but her response was, "Yes, this is how I network, because I'm charging my batteries and gathering my energy before I go in and engage." So it's engaging with people, recognizing that you know that it's an energy draining activity, and you build around that.
And by the way, just as an aside, kind of an annoying thing to say to somebody, especially a stranger. Is this how you network? I don't know that I'd have the moxie for that, unless if it was my best buddy and I wanted to bust someone's chops, absolutely. But other than that, that's kind of obnoxious.
That's being told to me at my first group leader summit, improvisers, a couple of years ago, but taken in good spirit. And
Okay, got it.
I know where it's coming from.
Got it. Well, let's wrap up with thanking our wonderful sponsors. Of course, everybody, we've got PimCon coming up in October. I know it seems a long time away, but the way things work, it's going to be a blink away. And if you're in personal injury, there's no better conference to go than PimCon. So check that out in pimcon.org. And then, of course, the Law Her podcast. Have you heard of the Law Her podcast with Sonia? Really good. It's mainly for women lawyers that are looking for how to be more successful as a female attorney. So you might want to check that out, and everybody check out Law Her podcast. Fantastic. Saja, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to network with you, they want to use you for immigration, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Saja Raoof. That's SAJARAOOF. And my website is my initials, SAR.law.
Yeah. And you're absolutely incredibly well known in the provisors universe, and you've been so wonderful to me and thoughtful, and I just appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom and coming out of your into the spotlight for a moment to share your wisdom, because I think this is a subject that really isn't hit very often, and it's a really important one. If 50% of the lawyers are introverts and they're hearing this and they're going, "Hey, I can do this too." So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Steve. This was so wonderful, and I look forward to seeing you in the provisor sphere soon.
Yeah, I'll be out and about, out and about. Hey, everybody, thank you for spending time with Saja and I today. I really hope you got some great takeaways. I feel like there was just a lot we covered, and a lot of great tips and things that you can use that are going to be super helpful to you in your career. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I think, there's always learning opportunities. So that's what this show's all about. Be that lawyer, everybody. Confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, be safe, be well. We will talk again soon.